It is Jimmy with Index Suspension, and we're going to be doing a quick installation of our shock eyelet on a shock off of a 2022 Raptor 35. This installation will require the following tools. Here we've got a MAP gas torch. You could also use propane. We've got grease. We've got red Loctite, bushing installation tool, a 35mm socket which we will be using as a cup, an 11mm socket which we will be using as a punch for press. We've got a 4mm or 5/32 Allen wrench, and then we've got a set of .875 shaft clamps. These are aluminum. Alright, so first things first, we're going to remove the shock shaft guard from the shock. Take your Allen wrench, just these 3 screws. And then slide off the shock shaft guard. Set that off to the side. Alright, so now we are going to press the bushing out of the shock eyelet. To do this, we've got the larger socket on the bottom acting as a cup, and we're going to take the smaller socket and use it to press on the steel center of the bushing. This can kind of be a pain without a second set of hands, so I got this propped up on a box. You don't have to do this with a hydraulic press. I just happen to have one and I like to use it, so that's what I'm going with, but you can do this in a vise if you want. All right. So if you want to order new bushings or, not go through the trouble of pressing these out, the part number's on the side right there. It's 014-11-080. All right, so while we're at the press, we're just going to go ahead and press the bushing into the new eyelet. It's a lot easier to do this when the eyelet's not on the shock than after installation. So first thing you're going to want to do, take your bushing to get it back in easily. You're going to want to just put a thin layer of grease on the bushing. So there, I got my little dab, just wipe that all over there and on that front face. Alright, so now we take the bushing with a thin layer of grease on it and the bushing press tool. Take the bushing press tool, pop it into the shock eyelet like that, and then bushing, again using this cup, or this socket as a cup. Alright, so our socket that we were using to press out the bushing is a little too long, so we're going to just use this bolt here as our punch this time around. So, exact opposite of pressing it out. Now you don't want to press the bushing clear through the other side of the shock eyelet, so when you get close you gotta stop and check, see how you're doing. So it's got to go a little bit further in. That should be good. So usually you got to overshoot it a little bit like this. You can see it's sticking out a little further than you'd like, and this is because you want the edges of the bushing to get all the way through the hole. So that right there is good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to push it from the other side just a little bit to recenter it. Alright, so now just to get it all the way centered, as you can see there's a little bit of unevenness. Just put it back in there, take what we're using as a punch, and Go down just a hair. Right there should be good. So as you can see, nice and even now. All right, so now we are going to be removing the shock eyelet from the shock. So you'll need your .875 shaft clamps. First, slide the bump stop on the shock down. We're going to be using some heat. You don't want this to get toasty. Now take your shaft clamps, device. So we're going to take the torch and start going to town. Real quick before getting into this, you want to make sure you do not overheat the shock shaft. That's steel, so you can change the material properties. So just you know, do a little bit, check with the wrench, do a little bit, check with the wrench. That's the one thing I forgot in the tool list earlier on. Crescent wrench of your choice. Doesn't need to be a big one because this doesn't require a lot of torque. All right, gonna give this a quick little check. Guessing it probably needs more heat, but yep. So if it slips just a little bit, it needs more heat. There we go. There we go. So when it's gotten hot enough, that's really all it takes for torque. And be careful, this eyelet will be very, very hot when it comes off. So I'm actually gonna stick a breaker bar through here so that it can hold it. And go set it somewhere to cool down. All right, so now that the shock shaft is removed, you want to let this cool down a little bit, but this is a good time to clean off the threads, make sure they're all nice and prepped for fresh Loctite. All right, so now we're going to apply Loctite and then install the new shock eyelet. Honestly, you don't gotta go crazy with the red Loctite, but if there's something to play it safe with and use maybe more than you think you need, this would be it. Now we're going to thread on the new shock eyelet. Now we're going to take the crescent wrench and just torque that. To about right there. You really, if it slips like that, you've applied plenty of torque. You don't have to put a ton on. Actually, the red Loctite is really what holds it. Some of you might be wondering why I'm using this eyelet as opposed to one of these guys. This is just a prototype eyelet, same deal. I don't like using production parts purely for the sake of demonstration, so that's that. All right, so the one thing left after this is to reinstall the shock guard. It's pretty straightforward, so I'll let you guys do that one. It's just those 3 bolts. Put them back in just how they came out, and you're good to go.